Today we're going to be making one of the easiest and quickest recipes you can make using a pressure cooker. Let's see how we make it. We will need 1 kilo of lamb, any cut will do, 2 medium sized red onions, about half a clove of garlic, some basmati rice, about 1 kilo. Finally, for the spice, we will be using about half a teaspoon of white pepper, half a teaspoon of black pepper, both of them equal amount, and salt. That's it. Nothing else. We will start by cleaning up the lamb, removing excess fat. You don't want the dish to be too fatty. Whichever piece that looks okay, doesn't have that much fat that need to be trimmed, you can put it in the pressure cooker pot. This particular piece needed to be trimmed, and we needed to remove the top fat. Once you are happy with the process, you can start by adding water, room temperature water. Add the water until you cover the meat completely. In this stage of the cooking process, don't worry about adding too much water for the pressure cooker. What we want to do is boil the meat, and some of the water will evaporate. So it's okay to overfill it with water before closing. Still, without adding any salt, heat up the pot, open until all the scum floats to the surface. This might take a while, so it's better not to disturb, mix, or stir the meat. Leave it still until all the scum rises to the surface. In the meantime, while we wait for the scum to rise to the surface, we can start preparing our onions and garlic. In this recipe, we will be using a food processor. We want to chop the onions and the garlic finely, and we want them to dissolve in the water. We don't want to see any onion pieces. That's why we are using a food processor. Now, if a food processor is not available to you and you don't have access to it, that doesn't mean you cannot make this recipe. You can definitely use a knife and chop the onions finely as possible. Blitz away your onions and garlic until they reach this stage. This is what we're looking for. Finely dissolved onions. No large pieces remains. Set the onions and garlic aside, and let's head back to the stove to remove the excess scum. You can easily remove this using a spoon and skimming the surface, dipping the spoon in a pot of water so you can clean up the spoon, or if you prefer, you can use a mesh strainer. Same method with a pot of water so you can dip it clean before putting it back. Continue doing this until most of the scum is gone. For me, it took about an hour until all the scum has disappeared and nothing floated to the surface. As you may have noticed, the water level has dropped to a safe place for us to close the lid. Before, after, before, after, before, after. You get the picture. Now it's time to add in the onions, salt, black pepper and white pepper. Mix all those ingredients well, and don't worry about the salt, we can adjust it later. And the final step is to close the lid and let the pressure do its work. So, if you are new to this whole pressure cooker thing, so what you need to do basically is close the lid tightly as you can, wait for the whistle to go, and once the whistles start to go, you need to lower your heat and let it cook. How long? That depends on the meat. In our case, for the lamb, it's going to take about 1.5 hours. During the last half hour of cooking the lamb under pressure, we're gonna start to soak up the rice. What we need to do is wash our basmati rice thoroughly until the water becomes clear, and then let it soak for at least half an hour. Once the 1.5 hours of cooking time finished, we need to turn off the heat and let the pressure release before opening the lid to add the rice. When dealing with pressure cooker, safety comes first. So here I am wearing a heat-proof glove to open the valve, the whistle, and let the pressure out. Once the pressure is released, you can start opening the lid. Sometimes you can find the lid to be very hard to open. It might help to open the valve, the whistle at the back, make sure the air goes in to make it easier for you to open the lid. This is the final result. You can check on the lamb, make sure that it's cooked through and falls off the bone. Here it's your last chance to taste and check the salt before adding the rice. For me, I checked the lamb and the salt content. The lamb was good, but it needed more salt. So we can add in the rice. Remember to drain most of the water in the rice before adding it in. You can adjust the liquid for the rice by removing excess water. If there is too much water to rice ratio, or if there is too little water and too much rice, you can always add in more water. Just make sure that the rice barely covers the liquid. Don't worry if you get it wrong the first few times. We all did. Just make sure you have plenty of water to rice that barely covers the surface. Remember, since our pot has little liquid, there will be no whistle. Just set your timer. Close it up 10 minutes and then turn off the heat. That's it. After 10 minutes of cooking, this will be the final result. If you have any questions or comment, please leave them below. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It really helps us out. Also, please consider subscribing and sharing the video with your friend who owns a pressure cooker. As for the serving, this is usually served just like that, with no extra sauces or sprinkle. As for the name of this dish, we call it برية or كبسة بيضة. Thank you all for watching till the end, and I will see you on the next video.